Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Mitch Simpkins, and this is Wins for Widows, where you get practical guidance from the mouth of professionals, all of us trying to help and to encourage you to get your feet on the ground after experiencing the loss of a loved one. Together, we'll uncover the rooted question that you might be asking yourself, what now? And what do I do next? Today, I'm excited to introduce you to Sabrina Alton. Sabrina comes to us from Austin, Texas, where she is the financial coach and founder of Insight Financial Coaching, where she helps midlife and widowed women nationwide navigate major financial transitions with clarity and with confidence. She's a graduate of the Financial Coach Academy and a former international trade negotiator. And she knows firsthand what it's like to rebuild finances from the ground up because she, as an immigrant, built her credit from scratch in the U.S. and managed her family's finances as a stay-at-home mom. She specializes in the messy details of financial organization, helping women become confident CFOs of their family finances during life's most challenging moments. Sabrina, welcome. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for taking time to be here. I'm excited to have you today.
Thank you, Mitch. Thank you for having me.
So I want to hear a little more about the international trade negotiator. Tell me a little more about that. I'm curious to hear what that's about.
Sure. Well, it all actually started with me as a young person. I realized that I wanted more than what my parents had, and my father wasn't going to co-sign for a university loan that I needed. And so I learned at a very young age that money is power and it can be used over you. And so I wanted to become a financially self-sufficient young woman so
Mm.
that I could make the choices that I wanted to make without anybody kind of getting in my way, basically.
Nice, nice.
And so, yeah, so I decided to study political science. I knew I wanted to work for the federal government. I just had an interest in international trade. And
Interesting.
so I
Interesting.
eventually ended up becoming an international trade negotiator with the government of Canada in the area of government procurement. Thank you.
Super
Yeah,
cool.
so I did that and I became the financially self-sufficient person that I wanted to be. And then, as happens, I got married, had kids, and we decided to immigrate to the US. For me personally, I wanted warmer weather and more sunshine. I was tired of the cold of Ottawa.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when we immigrated, I didn't really have a plan for myself. I just wanted to get to the warmth. And
Yeah.
so I became a stay-at-home mom because I immigrated on my husband's visa.
Okay.
My kids were really little at the time. Then it saved us the cost of daycare. Then we fell into that typical split of I manage the day-to-day finances, like the grocery shopping, the kids' activities, and he was doing that, bringing in the income and supposed to be managing the long-term investments, which
Okay.
is pretty common,
Yeah.
right?
Very common. Yes. Very.
Um, I mean, women have always been taught to like stretch a dollar and now I want to teach them how to grow a dollar. But anyways, we had that common split.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we didn't have the communication. So I didn't know what he was doing on the investing side.
Cool.
I
Cool.
didn't know how much he had in retirement accounts. I didn't know where those accounts were. And he didn't necessarily know how much I was spending day to day unless I came to him and said, like, I need more
I
money.
need more money. Yeah.
Right. And so that's how we were operating, which is not a good way. And so eventually we set up like a joint spreadsheet and joint password keepers. Because regardless of whether it's him or I that passes
Oh,
away,
interesting.
the other
Okay.
person needs to be able to step in,
I
right?
love that. So joint password keeper.
Yes, we had a
Cool.
joint and
I love-
if you're not into computers, my parents just had a little notebook where they wrote down all their passwords so that when my dad passed away, my mom had all the passwords
That's cool.
there.
Yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be like that exact solution, but the idea is the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had joint passwords, and I highly encourage all your listeners to have that conversation
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
don't want to wait until you're in the situation of they have passed away and I don't know where all the accounts are. And so I really help women kind of in that situation, whether it be from widowhood or they get divorced and they find like my husband used to manage the money and now I need to manage it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I really love working with those
Oh,
women.
that's man, you're hitting on so many important
Yeah, I mean, like, I
and
went way
important.
beyond the international
No, I
trade
love
stuffs.
that, Sabrina, because I love that you jumped right in and you talk about that's one of the biggest pieces that I see. I just talked with a lady out of Florida whose husband is still alive, but he's losing his memory and he's just recently lost his ability to speak. And she has no idea about anything with their finances. No passwords, no nothing. So she's starting from scratch with a husband now who is still alive, but is not able to really help and communicate. Oh, yeah. And that separation happens in typically every husband wife relationship, right? There's one that takes one and one takes the other. And knowing and understanding, and let's face it, no one wants to talk about death. No one wants to think it's ever going to happen. We live our lives as if it's never going to happen until it does. And let's face it, none of us get out of this world alive. And eventually it's going to happen, right? So get it. We don't want to talk about it, but sometimes you just have to. And sometimes maybe one or the other of the relationship is a little more excited about having that conversation, right? So sometimes one might feel like they're dragging the other.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Do you see that?
Yeah, for sure. Yes, because typically there's like somebody who's pulling and somebody who's avoiding in the relationship. And
Yeah.
so even though I only work with women, if they still are in a couple, like I do have some married clients, I encourage them to keep that communication open, have those money dates, right? And again, from both ends. Another thing that we found out is my husband had work provided life insurance
Mm,
and I heard about another stay-at-home mom whose husband passed away and the work provided life insurance did not cover the mortgage. And so I like had him check ours and ours didn't cover the mortgage either, right? And this is like, you think you're so organized, you think you're on top of things, but as an immigrant who wasn't used to having insurance provided by work, we just didn't know that.
yeah.
And so now that's part of the knowledge that I really want to share with other women,
Yeah.
especially stay-at-home moms or just like women who don't manage the finances. Because if your husband passes away and the insurance doesn't cover your mortgage, you're stuck with debt and potentially losing your house. And I do not want that to happen when you're in the process of grief,
Of grief.
right?
Yeah. Grief and finances don't often go very well together. They're not a good
No.
companion. And so getting ahead of it before, at least dealing with the finance as much as you can before the grief is definitely so important. Now, Sabrina, thank you. This is going to be awesome. We're already into
Thanks.
stuff that we didn't even
Yeah.
plan for. But so relevant, so cool. So let's talk about a couple of the questions we did discuss in our pre-meeting. We talked a little about widows feeling ashamed,
Hmm.
anxious, or bad with money, right? Oh, I'm so terrible with money. How do you help them rewrite that story in their head so that they can really start to make those confident financial decisions instead of avoiding it? What do you do?
Yes, well, I do help them try to rewrite the narrative, and there's usually a lot of shoulds.
Mm,
I should have done this before he
yeah.
passed away or before.
Ah, yeah.
And I just have to remind them that is true, but what's also true is now is the next best time to do it, right? And that it's not too late. We can still like get you organized, get you figured out, and just move from here because you can't change the past. And it just depends on the situation that they come to me with. So I do have a widow I'm working with who had managed her finances for a decade after her husband passed with no problem. But then she got caught in a financial scam and started making one bad financial decision after another. And so I'm helping her sort that out. And I'm telling her, you are still that person who can manage their money really well. You just got targeted by extremely professional people who know what they're doing and know how to like manipulate you and take advantage of you.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean you're bad with money because that can happen to anybody. It's not a personal moral failing that it
Mm,
happened to you.
mm, mm. Because that's really embarrassing, right? So embarrassing for them, they don't wanna tell anyone, it's kind of
Exactly.
perpetuating bad situation where one thing leads to another bad, to another bad, to another bad, as opposed to
Yeah.
them just saying, "Look, I got scammed." Tell somebody that you love. Tell someone
Yes.
that you can rely on, but don't try to hide it because you're embarrassed.
Well, I think part of the reason why she was hiding it is there was a lot of shame and there was a lot of challenge to her identity. And also, the immediate response when she did try to share it of her immediate family was also shaming,
Yeah,
which can
no,
be
that's
typical,
sad,
right?
that's
And
sad.
so I encourage, like, if you do get caught in a financial scam, I encourage people absolutely to contact the AARP's fraud hotline number
Good, okay,
because they will let the family know, do not shame your family member
that's
because
cool,
these
that's
are
cool,
very professional people who know what they're doing,
that's
right?
cool, I love
And
that.
they'll reassure the widow, you are not alone. This happens to other people,
I love
right?
that. That's good. Rather than it coming from a family member, sometimes
Yes.
better to come from a third party, and that third party ARP can come in and soften the blow, make it a
Yeah,
little
and the
ea
only reason, like, that she's working with me is because I didn't shame her when I heard her story.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so she learned
yeah.
to trust me and open up and share the details. With another widow I'm working with, she had unprocessed grief. She was using spending to address her emotions. Okay. And
Does
so,
that work really well, Sabrina? Is that a good solution?
no, no, because it
You
doesn't work.
recommend
It's
that.
not a solution. It doesn't
Okay,
work.
okay, okay.
So and that looks different for different people. Like some people, it's like clothes shopping. For her, it was door dashing. And so again, because you're dealing with, I don't have a partner here to cook with me now, or I don't have somebody to come home to who has a meal with me.
Yeah,
And so with her, I'm also helping her to reframe how she's thinking about things and why she got into the position she got into. I'm helping her untangle all the credit card debt that she got into, but also just looking at what led her here. Because if I just address the
mm,
credit card debt, she could easily get back into that cycle. That this happens all the time where you get into debt, you pay it off, you get into debt again because you're never actually addressing the root of the problem.
yes, yes,
And because a lot of our session time dealing with this debt repayment plan of her credit cards, she is also seeing a therapist who can help her process the grief and understanding why is she doing these
that's
things.
great, I love that, and
Yeah.
you span a little both of that, right? I mean, you spend a
Yes.
little time in the
Yeah.
behavioral and the emotional piece of it as well as the practical piece of it, and
Mhm.
those important to get both of those because it is so emotional. I mean, this is
Yeah, well,
major emotions. This is like
exactly,
there's
and
so many
it
pieces to
ties
it.
back to how do I take them kind of out of that feeling bad about money, and if we're not in a crisis situation, I will start with a money history and money personality
Oh,
discussion with them.
good, good.
And I might hear something like, when I was growing up, my dad
Yeah,
managed the money and
yeah,
didn't teach me anything. And then I got married, and then my husband managed the money and didn't teach me anything. So then I just say to them, like, how are you supposed to know about this?
yeah,
If you were never given the opportunity to manage money, if you were never taught the skills, it makes complete sense. And it's not again, it's not a personal failing or a moral issue. It's a lack of skills, and I can teach you those skills.
that's awesome, that's
Right. And
awesome.
then like, once they learn that and once we start building up those little wins, they become confident in themselves, right? And I'm like,
That's
yes, you
so
are.
cool.
You're fully capable,
That's gotta be
right?
so gratifying. I know it is. I've seen it in the women that I work with and watch them evolve and that confidence start to build and then every other parts of their life. Unfortunately, We all have a relationship with money. And because money is such a central part of allowing us to do the things that we want or be the person that we want sometimes, we have to understand that relationship and make it a good relationship, a healthy relationship, a
Yes.
productive relationship.
Yes, exactly. Because money is just a tool that you can use to achieve the goals you want in life, or you can also use it to sabotage yourself. And that's tied back to your mind and what your mind is telling you about money and what you learned growing up.
Yeah. Yeah. So you got to
So
really
that's
challenge.
why we look at those
That's
things.
awesome. And I
Yeah.
think you kind of alluded to this same situation, but where sometimes there's the scams. What are the warning signs that maybe widows or women can see or their adult children maybe can see that might indicate like there might be something going on here? Are there some early signs that you've seen?
If you hear them say, I made a new friend, and they have that like look on their face, meaning it's a guy friend, I made a new friend on Facebook, or this friend has been sending me nice things like poetry or music or something like that. This happened to my mom, and this also happened to one of my clients.
Interesting.
Because they're lonely, right? They're lonely and they want companionship. They want somebody to live their day-to-day life with. Even if they have friends that they're meeting throughout the day, if they're coming back to an empty home, especially one that they shared with their partner, is very lonely, which makes them susceptible to kind of like these dating scams, which the scammers know and they target you. So if they start saying something like that, if they start asking for financial information that they hadn't asked before, like I need last year's taxes or I need to download a credit report now.
And you're like, oh, why do you all this
Yeah, like what
shit?
for,
Is this
or
with you and your for you and your boyfriend or what's going on here?
yeah,
Gig
exactly. So
setting.
that's
Interesting.
another one.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, things like that.
Yeah, and I know a lot of adult children that are really involved in their parents and concerned for their parents and sometimes kind of the guardian of that at some point, depending on, if there's dementia or some type of physical concern there. I know a lot of adult children, and as we age and our parents age, it becomes inevitable potentially.
Yeah, and what I would say there is it's very, very tricky for the children because in my client who got into scams, her children were trying to tell her these are scams and she would not listen. And so that's when you do want to try and bring in other people because if you as the child keep trying to push, that relationship is just going to collapse. Like they got into a huge fight because from the mom's point of view, it's coming across as controlling and like, you're trying to take away my freedom. And from the child's point of view, they're just trying to look out for their parent and they're getting offended that their parent is not letting them help. But
Interesting.
if the parent is still of sound mind, and of course that's questionable if they're getting into a scam, but literally if they don't have dementia, then it's still up to them, the widow, to make her own decisions. And that means making her own mistakes and dealing with the consequences of those mistakes. And that's what I'm helping my widow with right now. Like she got herself into thousands of dollars of debt. She got herself into a loan with over 100% interest rate with her car as collateral. And that's like one of her only assets.
It's
And
sad.
of course, her children hate that, right? And they've been trying to stop her, but
Mm.
sometimes it has to come from somebody else.
Said. I love
Yeah.
that, and most people, most women, that are older will have assets where they've had other professionals involved in their lives or their husbands' lives, CPAs or financial advisors or counselors or whatever else, so they can lean on them. I know for me, some of my adult children, of my clients will call me occasionally and just kind of put a bug in my ear. "Hey, Mitch,
Mm,
like, this is going on with my mom. You might wanna be aware of it." "Oh, cool, thank you."
yeah.
And
th-
because they know that the relationship with me is very neutral,
yes.
and I'm there just for their interest, and so, to your point, a lot of times I can say things that they can't,
Yes.
And my wisest of my adult children of my clients know that they can do that. And I try to keep a good relationship with them for that reason, because I
Mhm.
know they can see some things that I probably won't be able to because they're seeing them more often. And it makes for a nice relationship. You probably see that as well
Mhm.
as you work in in your realm. You probably keep good relationships with the adult children because
Yep.
then that you want to hear from them. They're another eyes and ears for you.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. But unfortunately, not everybody has that. I know one of my widow clients kind of has a severed relationship with her daughter. So
Mm,
not everybody has that. So again, loneliness is an epidemic in the United States. People don't always have people they feel they can trust. And that's where I'm filling a void.
yep. Yep. Awesome. Awesome. So cool. We talked a little bit about one of the ladies that I've talked with whose husband is no longer able to really communicate. What steps should she and others take who maybe do find themselves in that first 30, 60 days? Help trying to find the money, getting things organized, make sure bills are done. Any particular early recommendations that you would give to them for a way to kind of sleuth their money and figure out, even if they don't have passwords and things?
Yes. So I would say just be creative and resourceful. So, what that means is if your spouse can still communicate in any way, be that like just pointing at a bank logo or writing something out, try to be creative. But if it is related to memory loss, then that's not going to help. So then I would just look for paper statements. If you do have an email password, look for the electronic statements.
Yeah.
If you know the bank, visit the bank and speak to a banker. If you don't, ask your spouse's friends if they knew, because sometimes guys will talk about their investments, right? So you
Mm,
can always ask
mm,
their friend, do you
mm,
know where my spouse has his investment? If he
mm,
was still working, you could call the employer to see, is there like a 401k with you?
mm.
And so I would just say get creative and resourceful. You want to make sure you know how much income is coming in and what bills are owed. And you want to prioritize, obviously, like mortgage and rent, utilities.
Mm.
Make sure you have some money for food. Freeze the credit report so there can't be identity fraud while your spouse is incapacitated. And just start there. Just start there, making sure, okay, I know I have money coming in to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And I know, okay, I've now found out that our mortgage is on auto pay and our
Yeah.
electricity, that type of stuff.
Okay. No, that's
Yeah.
great. And sometimes the challenge that I see too is a technological gap too, where everything has gone so techno. Sometimes statements and things aren't in paper, and it's
Yes.
really hard to capture those. So one of the things that I've encouraged, and you may be seeing this, is to all the other amazing things that you said. If there's an accountant, a CPA that's been involved in the finances for a long time,
Yeah.
go to them because they probably know most of what's going on, or
Yes.
they
Yeah.
can
The
gather and
CPA
pull things together and be like, "Oh, you got this. There's this dividend that came through the store. There must be an account that's here."
over
Or
here.
an attorney even, an attorney who maybe drafted some of the documents will know about assets because they include that
Yes.
as part of of the estate work that they can do.
Yes, and if there is a trust, the attorney's office would have a copy of it, most likely.
Good.
And
Okay.
I guess the other thing you could check is if you do know the bank, for example, and you go to that bank's website on the computer, your spouse might have auto-saved the login and password.
Mm, mm, mm.
Although
Good.
these days they might send you a code and the code might go to your spouse's phone, so you need to have that as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do know that is how I got into my mom's account when I was helping
That's
her.
awesome.
She
Awesome.
just had it saved because she knew, like, I'm not gonna remember the password,
Yeah.
so it was
Yeah.
just saved.
That's a good point, but you have to go on their computer where
Yes.
those passwords were saved. Great point, great point.
Yeah.
Sabrina, great advice. Thank you. That's
Yeah, you're
really cool.
welcome.
Yeah, so, you also I mean, we talked about the financial therapy that you do, and I know you work one of your passions and one of the places that you work well with is with ADHD, high debt
Mhm.
or emotional spending, right? So We talked a little about this, but any other common emotional behavior patterns that you see related to spending or debt or avoidance that people can be aware of and start to change or adult children can encourage?
Well, and just to clarify, I'm not a financial therapist, although I do use some of their techniques, and there are certified financial therapists that I can connect people with.
Mm,
But as a coach, I do coach, I think all my clients have been ADHD women. And one of the challenges of having ADHD is your executive functioning doesn't work as well. So that could be like task initiation. So if you need to open a high yield savings account, for example, just taking that first step can be really, really hard for them. I mean, and just for anybody, taking that first step of something new that's unknown, that you can feel scared that you might make a mistake. The way I tackle that with them is I can do it with them. Right? And it's called body doubling. So I can be there with them and reassure them you're not making the mistake, or walk through, this is what you put here, this is what you put here. But a lot of challenge comes down to executive functioning of like
mm,
keeping track of details, keeping track of time. Sometimes they have time blindness. So that's why we might want to automate things, right? And make
mm,
sure it's
mm,
always going to get paid on time, because that's one less detail they have to keep in their brain.
mm, mm,
And even if it's in the calendar, if it's not automated, you can easily see the pop up and do nothing about it, right?
mm. Are you talking like automation, like on the iPhone that has the tasks?
No, automation in the sense of like your bills are automatically paid.
I see, I see. Okay.
Yeah, so we
So
set
just
them
get
on
it
auto
so that it's
pay.
happening.
Yeah, because some people are still doing manual pay. And there are some reasons why you might want to do that, but it generally comes down to executive functioning skills, which are the like planning and organizing skills, which are my superpower. So with all the women I work with, the common factor is that organization, be it like, let's organize all your credit cards and make a debt payment plan, or let's organize all your buy now, pay later plans. So we
Mhm,
know how much
mhm.
money is going out every month to these plans and when they're
Okay,
going to stop.
okay.
Let's organize your savings and make savings buckets for different things you want to save for. So it really comes down to a lot of that in the details,
Okay. Okay.
because like I can look at their numbers, and just from my own experience and from the details, I can say like, oh, I think your insurance is a bit high. Like, why don't you call your agent and see if you can lower it?
Hmm,
Or,
mm, mm,
things like that to help
mm,
them
mm, mm.
put money where they would rather spend it.
So that's one of the first things that you do with them is just get them to simply write it down, organize, see it, have it in a place where it's documented and they can react to it.
Yeah, so usually in my first meeting, I do like that money history and personalities. The first hour, and the second hour is their big picture
Mm,
financial snapshot, which is assets, liabilities, income, and expenses. And I have the expenses divided by fixed, fund, and future. And I see what percent of your income is going to each of these categories, because
mm,
we want
mm.
some to go to each of them.
Oh, cool.
Otherwise, you are going to feel stressed if most of your money is going to fixed
Cool.
expenses,
Cool.
right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um,
I love that.
and
Fixed, and you said fun.
Yeah,
Fixed,
fixed
fun,
future and fun.
and
Yeah,
then
because you're going to do it anyway, right?
right,
So
right, right,
let's
right.
just put it in there.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
make sure a certain piece is allocated for you to go to a restaurant, for you to go get your
yeah.
nails done, for you to like get a massage or go to a
Yeah,
concert or
it's
whatever.
like if you go on a diet and you say, "Oh, I'm never gonna touch sugar again," like, that lasts for
Yeah.
what, 3 days? As opposed to you say, "On the weekends, I'm gonna enjoy sugar, but during the week, I'm not."
Well,
The same
actually, what
same idea,
dietitians
everybody.
will have you do is just have a small piece of it every day. Like,
Good, that's even
have a small piece of dark chocolate every day instead of just binging and restricting. So yeah, we see that in food, binging and restricting, and we see
okay,
that in money as well,
that's
where
cool,
it's like,
cool.
I'm not going to spend, I'm not going to spend, I'm not going to spend. And then you get so tired, like you feel like
Mhm,
life is just drudgery, that you
yeah,
go out and blow a bunch of money.
yeah,
So we want to like stop that
love that,
by
love that,
allocating a certain portion to your fun, because you
love
have
that.
to have fun, but you also have to set aside some money for future you,
Yeah,
right? For your retirement, for if you have kids, maybe for their education, for saving for a down payment or a
mm,
car or something like that.
mm,
So I like to address all of them. And usually what happens is those totals don't add up to 100 because people don't actually know where they're spending their money.
Mm,
They just don't know. Like they'll think I'm spending maybe $200 at a restaurant a month and it
yep,
could be 400,
yep, yep.
right? So the overall picture will tell
Mm,
us. And then I get into if we continue with coaching, I get into the actual details to see where the money is really
yeah,
going.
and that probably takes a little while, right?
It does.
Probably takes a
Yeah.
month or 2 to be like, "Alright, let's watch the patterns." Yeah, I bet 90 well, I'll give it, some leniency. 95% of the new people I talk to, uh, don't know where their money's going. They have no
Yeah.
concept. They're like, I spend. How much do you spend? I don't know." "Well,
Yeah.
how much do you save?" "Well, nothing." "Well, how much do you make?" "It's this much." Then that's how much you're spending. If
Yeah.
your savings account isn't growing, then you're spending everything that you take in, and so whatever your income, your net income to you is the spending amount. That's one easy way to get at it, but it takes a while. It's usually several months, sometimes a year or so that they really start to get a feel for what, and that's, I think, part of the challenge is just being aware,
Yes.
not even
Yeah.
controlling it, but just being aware to be like, "What? I spent how much on coffee last month?"
So that's what my
Crazy.
coaching is all about. Like it's the first step is awareness.
Mhm.
The second step is insight. Like, do I actually want to be spending this much money on this item?
Yep,
And then the third step is action, which is which makes that's what differentiates me as a coach versus just a financial educator,
I
right?
see.
I'm not just giving you the knowledge, but what do you want to do about it? Let's line up your spending to your values and what's important to you in life. And then let's take
Let's
action
make
and
it
implement
happen.
it.
That's cool.
And that's why I'm a huge advocate for coaches because we have so many books, blogs, and podcasts about personal finances. But yet in the US, the savings rate is lower and the credit card debt is still going up. So you need
Mm,
somebody who's going to be there to say,
mhm,
like, I will help you take that first step. And
mhm,
once they're over the hump, usually they're pretty good,
and they can get
right?
going.
And if you're afraid to make a mistake and you don't want to do something wrong, I'm the one that's going to help walk you through that, not a book. So,
And all of us need a good coach in our corner. All of us need somebody who
yes.
just keeps us accountable, who makes the phone
Hmm.
call and says, "How'd you do this week?" And you
Yeah.
say, "Oh, I forgot about that. Let me get back to it." There's a
Yeah.
lot.
And now I'm not going to be like, you
Yeah,
didn't do this.
right.
I'm going to you. That's normal. That's part of the process. It's not linear. It's like two steps forward, one step back. It's like winding curve. And I'm going to reassure them, don't beat yourself up and don't get paralyzed and don't stop the work.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we call it, with my one client, we call it scary action
Mm,
because she is so scared to call those banks and those credit card companies. And she was avoiding it before she met me, but now she's doing it. She is
that's
still
so cool.
scared, but
Yeah,
she is doing it.
that's so cool.
And then when they do
So
it,
cool.
I have to say, we need to celebrate now. We need to acknowledge that you took action because you could still feel bad about yourself. And it's like, no, you're doing stuff, you're taking action. Let's celebrate.
That's
And
cool.
that's what's going to start changing your mindset.
That's
Like,
so cool.
yeah.
That's so cool. I love everything
Mm.
that you've said. Everything that you've said is
Okay. Thank
exactly
you.
what I've experienced, exactly what I see happening, exactly what women need to hear. And the part about you giving yourself grace
Hmm.
to me is huge. Huge, huge, especially if you're a widow and you've just lost your partner. Like give yourself a
Yes.
break and be like, this really sucks.
Yeah.
And I'm
And
not
don't
alone. There's a
rush,
lot
you
of us
know?
who say that it's hard, but if you make a mistake, guess what? It's life, and you're gonna move on, and you're gonna be okay, and but it's a hard there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of things where they see somehow their spouse up in heaven looking down and going, "I can't believe you did that," and they think that it's not happening, but it's real, and it's a part of that experience, so I love that you've talked about that and the grace that they need to take and just a day at a time. Sabrina, you are amazing. You have given
Thank
so
you.
many cool things. Can I borrow the three Fs, the
Yeah, the fixed
fix,
future and fun.
future, and fun? I love
Yeah.
that. I'm gonna adopt that if I can. I'll give you full credit for it.
You're welcome, Mitch. The last thing I would add
Yes,
too for
please.
widows especially is it's okay to take time, right? We don't want you making a major decision in the first year after your spouse passes away because you do need that time to process the grief. And so it's okay. Like just take your time, let things settle, make sure like once you know everything is taken care of in terms of like the mortgage and that, just give yourself time
Yep,
to go through the grief.
yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Sabrina, you're amazing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for your work. Appreciate your
Yeah.
time. Thank you
Yeah.
today.
Thank you, Mitch.